19th of March, President Uhuru Kenyatta gave an abrupt executive order to shut down all learning institutions with immediate effect after the positive confirmation of coronavirus in the country. 6 months on, learning institutions still remain closed. However, with science and the Ministry of Health indicating that the COVID-19 curve might be flattening, are we likely to see a resumption of the academic calendar? Are we ready? What will it take to get here? Hello there and welcome to this week's episode of Metropole Debrief. My name is Ndero Oganga.
Any day between now and the 28th of September to be in schools and prepare the schools for the eventual opening.
It's with this announcement by the Teachers Service Commission CEO to teachers that the possibility of schools reopening sooner than expected has come to light. The TSC boss was upbeat that teachers would recover the time lost due to the closure of schools in mid-March that was triggered by the onset of COVID-19 pandemic in Kenya.
We wish to assure the country that our teachers are totally prepared and ready to support our children to recover the lost time and save the academic year that was at risk of being lost.
However, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha evaded comment on when learning institutions will be reopened, only saying that it's about time to call children back to school.
But we have not said schools are opening. I am sure some of the headlines will say that schools are opening now. Yeah, but the date you chose is a wrong date. Whoever gave you the information is speculative. We shall give you dates after appropriate government machinery has gone through.
Final year university students pursuing science-based courses will, however, be allowed to return to class.
Those people in university in the final year who are about to graduate but they can't finish their exams because they have sciences and they must go physically and do their science practicals, can go ahead and do so, bearing in mind the strict COVID protocols. So that if you are planning to graduate in December and you want to graduate everybody, we already allowed the doctors to do so, but we are now allowing again all the science-based groups to do so. In terms of the tertiary colleges, the mid-level and tertiary colleges, we are waiting the larger stakeholders, which will be any time between today and 28th, to concur with what we have decided. And we are going to encourage them to open with the ones which had examination classes first, and then they manage it from there.
Meanwhile, activist Okia Omtata has gone to court to challenge the government's plan to reopen schools. In his petition, Okia contends that parents are financially constrained and that measures to tackle COVID-19 in schools are not up to standards. In the meantime, a ministerial forum to review the proposed school calendar is set to take place by Friday, September 25th. The forum, which will be spearheaded by CS Magoha, Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, will precede the forthcoming presidential address that will hopefully give a clear way forward on when schools will actually be reopened. Victoria Amunga for Metropole TV, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Amunga. Will it be the 19th of October or January? As you had the man, that is your speculation. But here's what the Ministry of Education says. Reopening of learning institutions in the country will be responsive to the dimension of the COVID-19 situation and in accordance with the Ministry of Health guidelines on the level of risk and protocol to be issued in the best interest of the learner. The guidelines are clear on the following. 1, adjust classroom size to allow for social distancing. 2, rework educational programs to allow large crowds in schools. So maybe some kids can go in the morning and some can go in the afternoon. 3, and most essential, the use of face masks by all learners and trainers, teachers and non-teaching staff. There has to be adequate clean running water, liquid soap and hand sanitizers. Further to this, temperature monitoring and record keeping must be made available. Then there will be a procedure of handling suspected COVID-19 cases in a school. So what are the health and safety protocols for basic educational institutions? Those were just the basic guidelines. So about basic education. 1, social distancing in educational setting. The schools must ensure that there's at least 1 meter distance, which will be required in commonly shared areas, which include classrooms. Now, in classrooms, learning will take place outside the classroom. So with the CBC, we want to ensure that kids are as outside as possible. Where the learners will be in class, institution management will create physical distancing between learners and place of desk and at least 1 to 10 meters apart from one another. How practical is this, bearing in mind that we know the sizes of our classroom and they hold about 50 students each? We wait and see. Desks and lockers will be cleaned and disinfected daily and will not be shared. Maybe that's why we are seeing the government out there ensuring that as many desks are built for our kids. And then twice a week, all school facilities will be disinfected. Provision of proper ventilation to ensure circulation of clean air by keeping windows and doors open during the learning period. So this is some of the regulations that will guide a classroom. Kids will be outside as much as possible, ensure there's distance between the kids, sanitize the desks that they're using, and also sanitize the school. How about boarding schools? What are the boarding facility guidelines? Dormitories where the kids sleep shall maintain a distance of at least 1 meter between beds from either side, and where possible, boarding will be made optional. Now remember, the Uhuru government has always had this agenda of 100% transition from primary to secondary schools, as is high schools are overwhelmed. But the guidelines continue to say the use of double-decker beds must meet social distancing of at least 1 meter between each occupant. This means maybe they might have to rework all the beds in school. All surfaces and equipment in the dormitory should be cleaned and disinfected daily. Further, bed linens and towels should be washed weekly and dried under direct sunlight. Also, in the dormitory facilities, there has to be good ventilation to ensure circulation of clean air and avoid dampness. And here is another guideline that has to be adhered to. Adequate clean water should be provided in the dormitories for the purpose of drinking, bathing, laundry, and frequent washing of hands. So we've seen the classroom, we've seen the dormitory, almost the same. Maintain social distancing. How practical is this, bearing in mind that most of our high schools are overwhelmed with the 100% transition? Ensure there's distance between the beds and provision of clean water. We wait to see. Also remember that these learners that are in day schools, they need to go to school every day and they use either school transport or public transport. So what are the guidelines guiding the transportation of learners when they are going to school? 1, learners shall maintain 1 meter distance from each other while waiting to board a vehicle. So probably we'll see long queues of our kids. And while on board, learners and trainers shall wear face masks and sit at least 1 meter distance from each other in accordance with the public health guidelines. Further, institutions should ensure learners' transport complies with the legal notice number 50 of 6th April 2020, which licenses vehicles to carry not more than 50 people. Now, we've all seen this sometimes when the buses are transporting kids. Sometimes they sit 2 or 3, and this just means that this will not be possible. They'll have to adhere to these guidelines, which means how many trips does the school bus have to make in order to get all the kids to school? How does that affect the schedule of the school? We wait and see. Further, provide hand washing facilities at the transport hub with liquid soap and water. All surfaces in the bus shall be disinfected frequently. So when the bus comes to pick your kid, there has to be distance between them. They'll wear a mask. They have to wash their hands, and there has to be social distancing in the bus. The child has gotten to school. We know how the classroom looks like. We know how the dormitory looks like. However, there's one tricky bit. Co-curriculum activities. They like going out, they like playing with each other. How will this work? So the Ministry of Education says swimming shall be halted in all educational institutions until the COVID-19 risk is at the lowest. So swimming, X. Assemblies, inter-institution competitions, including drama, games, music, sports, and other events that create crowded conditions shall be suspended for the time being. Last term or second term, it was probably the music festival term, and sporting activities, all those are cancelled. Where learners will be engaged in games within the institution, because all work with no play makes Jack a dull boy, teachers shall ensure that there is 1 meter distance. How practical is that? Following all the kids, ensuring there's distance between them. Wash their hands thoroughly before and after the games, and sanitize the equipment that they have to play with. So we all know that most of the activities will be restricted, but where there'll be activity, there will be strict supervision. However, We live in the wake of COVID-19. We cannot rule the disease out. What happens when there's a COVID-19 case in school? And that's why there's the institution, dispensary, and sick bay protocol. Now, it stipulates that institutions shall ensure there's a qualified nurse in charge or have arrangements with local health centers to manage learners' health-related issues. Clinics in learning institutions should be equipped with emergency medical supplies to assist learners and staff in the event of a COVID-19 outbreak. The school must also conduct preliminary temperature checks on the learners/trainers visiting the sick bay. These are some of the guidelines on the health and safety protocol for reopening of basic education institution amid the COVID-19 pandemic by the Ministry of Education. We've looked at classrooms, we've looked at dormitories, we've looked at transport, sick bay, and even co-curriculum activities. Question is, are these guidelines enough? Are they practical enough to be implemented in schools? And will they lead to a safe reopening? From everything that I've told you, do you feel safe to allow your child to go back to school when Magoha says the time has come? After the break, we dive deep into the conversation with people that understand all matters education. See you shortly.